Hey everybody, Invisiblekatana here with my review for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. As the title says, there will be spoilers in the second half, so I'll let you guys know when we get to that, because there are some major spoilers in this, so if you have not seen the movie, you do not want this spoiled for you. Also, as you can see, I busted out like all the Turtles merch that I got, except for like my last Ronin comics. You can check out a review of that if you want to. Main reason for that is I haven't made anything in like 2.5 months, so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna be extra stupid and just get all my stuff out just because. So like normally I wouldn't bring like all the figures out and all my, well, I only got 2 records, but I wouldn't bring out like the records and everything. It would typically just be like, well, there's a record and that's about it. But if you guys could check out some of my other videos, I'd greatly appreciate that. Got a bunch of turtle stuff, a bunch of other random stuff as well that's super nerdy. So if you guys could do that, help me with the algorithm and all that junk, I'd appreciate it, as I'm kind of getting back into the flow of things. But to kick things off, obviously not spoiler wise, it was fun. The animation I thought was good. One thing that you will definitely notice is the humans look weird, like ugly weird. Like it's really funny watching it, whereas like all the mutants really kind of just like, okay, you know, that's a cool design, that's fun to see. The humans actually look kind of weird. So I was like, all right, I'm shocked by that one. And also it was weird. It was weird watching that as I went throughout the film. A lot of the humans is just like, you just look ugly. Like it was like weird that they did it that way. But the animation looked cool. I know it's obviously, you know, a lot of people will mention Spider-Verse, obviously Puss in Boots and all that stuff. Definitely has that style like a little bit, but it's not the same. Like if you put them side by side, they look completely different. This one's definitely more sketchbook. And I love the way they handle that. It's definitely one of those interesting things, like just the way they do even just lights, like the reflection of lights is technically just drawn like a sketchbook. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. You kind of have to like, instead of it just looking like dust, it's like you can tell it's dust, but it literally looks like lines. And it's like, huh, that's an interesting way to do that. So I enjoyed the animation for sure. Definitely a funny movie. It's more of the funny Ninja Turtle style versus the more serious Ninja Turtle style, which I think also lends to the fact that they went, you know, and this is something else you'll probably hear in every review, they went full teenager. Young actual teenagers are cast. The characters are actually young teenagers. They're not 18-year-old teenagers or 19-year-old teenagers. They're like young teenagers. They are 15 years old in this. And it's like, okay, I appreciate that. Like a lot of other, you know, Turtles fans, where it's like they're actually like the super teenage part of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I thought that was good. A lot of references in this, which I will say, I think it'll make the movie feel dated. And of course, the other movies have references, like, you know, if I took my daughters to see like the original movie and, you know, it's like, tell me this isn't a Jose Canseco bad. It's like, they're not going to get that reference. They don't know who the F that is. But, you know, there are so many references in this where I was like, man, in like 5 years, this movie is going to be so dated, because some of the references are just like, it's like pop culture words that might not even be used, you know, in the next 5 years. It's that sort of thing. So it's like, you know, it'll feel dated. It's not going to make the movie bad, but it's going to be one of those things where it's like, they do a lot of references. Some will just be long lasting references. If it's about an actor, it's like, okay, that's just a famous person, but then it'll be something that's like very specific to like what's happening right now in pop culture. Like I said, terms or maybe a song, or, you know, something like that. It doesn't take away from the movie, just something that I definitely noticed. As far as the acting, everything's well done. The characters I thought were really cool. They do some interesting stuff. Obviously, I'll get into that with spoilers, character-wise and just how the characters are within it. But I think it's really fun. I do wish there was a bit more action, but the action that they have in this is actually really good. I definitely enjoyed it. There's a really great sequence that they have. Actually, I think the first big fight scene in the whole movie is actually my favorite one, because it actually focuses on, or I guess technically it would be like the second big fight scene in the movie. I think that's my favorite one out of the whole thing, but all of them are fun in their own way for sure. Like they're either comedic and stuff, because once again, super young version of the Turtles, so they have the training, but they're still not at that point of being like the super dark serious version. When they go into a fight, they're still really young, and it's like, holy crap, can we do this? We got the skills to do it, but can we do it still? So it's still in that era until we go, you know, further in the movies, which apparently I also found out I would assume they already have the plan to make a second movie. They're also doing a 2-season series on Paramount Plus, so that's great. But it's going to be filling the gap between the 2 films. I didn't know that was a thing literally until after I got out of the movie. So that's something that you know now. They're actually doing a series that will bridge the gap between this film and what they plan on making for the sequel. So I was like, all right, let's see how that works. I'm very curious. Once again, spoiler stuff, so we'll get to that, because it's like there's so many different ways it could go. Like it's really crazy. But all in all, I thought it was definitely fun. I was glad I got to see it. I wouldn't mind seeing it a second time. I think I'd really enjoy it. I love, like I said, the action sequence that I really liked. I thought it was just so well done. Like the music was good, the animation was good, the way they would switch through some of the action was just like, this is sick. I absolutely loved it. There were a couple of cool scenes. I think all the fight scenes are cool, but like the second one was like, okay, this is definitely the one right here. And I think it was just a blend of everything coming together for the movie. And then the other ones were just like, I enjoy this. It's definitely cool. But there's like a couple of extra elements in my favorite fight throughout the film, but all of them are good. I love the way the movie, you know, top to bottom, I really had a good time with this. And I think that's all I can say, because honestly, spoiler wise, I'm gonna jump straight to the end. So if you have not seen the movie, I would highly recommend you go see it, because like the spoiler is just one of the craziest things. Like you go see the Turtles, you kind of know what to expect, and then this movie switches it up on you. So if you have not seen it, go see it. Full on spoiler, that is the warning. Right now I'm going to talk about the ending. I was shocked, to say the least. I was shocked by the ending, where it was like, okay, I think, well, it wasn't halfway, but it's like once they fought Superfly, I was like, all right, well, that in itself was like, okay, that's an interesting thing, because there's a lot of characters here, and it's like, all right, Mondo Gecko, let's face it, like, we knew he was gonna somehow turn good. It's Mondo Gecko. But everybody else was like, it's kind of up in the air. Specifically, Bebop and Rocksteady. I was like, oh, they're gonna be cool with them too. And that felt weird because, of course, you know, you got these, probably not the best representation, but you got these two right here. You know, when I think villains of Ninja Turtles, Shredder #1, which, there we go, boom, comic Shredder, right there. This is probably my favorite figure of Shredder, and then these two. Like, that's what I think of when I think villains in Ninja Turtles, and it's like, they're good. That could change, of course, going into the second movie. We'll see what happens. You know, like a lot of influence from this guy, so we, you know, anything could happen. We'll see. From there, I was already like, all right, everybody's good. They're all fighting against Superfly. Great character. There were at least 5 times where I thought for sure he was going to say shit. Like 100%. There were a lot of times where it was like, clearly he was going to swear. And they're like, we're just going to cut right here. And then boom, whatever the rating is. I have no idea what the rating is, but I'm like, there are a couple of moments for sure. He swears a lot, in all honesty. I was genuinely shocked. I was like, okay, he said like hell one time or damn. And it was, you know, Ninja Turtles like, damn, you get your one, sure. But he was swearing a lot, considering, you know, I would assume it's PG. I don't think it's PG-13, but maybe it is. I don't know. But he definitely swears way more than I thought he was going to in this movie. And I was like, I don't hate that personally. I was shocked by it for sure, but definitely a couple of times I was like, are they gonna hit, like, they're not gonna, you know, drop the F-bomb, but I'm like, they're like right on the cusp a couple of times. Didn't hate that at all. Thought it was funny. But them fighting Superfly, I was like, all right, I was surprised by the twist of that. I thought it was really good. And then they're going through, and then of course April ends up getting on the news, and then she's like, hey, they're helping out. And I was like, okay, this is like all over the news. They have footage of them. They're being the heroes. There's nowhere else for this to go but for them to just be seen as heroes, right? Like, there's nowhere else to go. And that's exactly what happens. They just end up being heroes. And not only that, they get to realize their dream of just straight up going to school. I like the outfits, by the way. I thought they were pretty good. So I'm like, all right, I didn't see that one coming. You know, you have the Turtles, like, that's obviously one of the biggest things about the Turtles. Like, they are in the shadows. They are ninjas striking from the shadows. They have to help people but not be seen. And that's just, you know, typically speaking, that is the universe of the Turtles. So to have that shifted, especially at the end of the very first film, I'm so curious what they're going to do next, because you have all these other characters. Once again, they could easily have Bebop and Rocksteady be like, you know what? We kind of prefer this. Like, you know, maybe we don't want to live in the sewer all that effing time. It's very easy to say that that's their reasoning. But it's like, all right, well, what do they, you know, what are they going to do next? And then, you know, that's a simple twist. Them being accepted is so different for the dynamic of the Turtles, because then it's like, all right, I'm going to feel weird if I don't see them in school a bunch. Like, if they have a whole second movie and it's like most of the time they're not at school, or they don't have any other, that's another thing. It's like, all right, aside from Irma, I mean, maybe they can meet Casey, you know, in high school, but it's like, there's not exactly a buttload of human characters for the Turtles to meet ever. Like, that's just not really a big thing. So I was so curious when they did that, because my main thing is not that, you know, it's a big, you know, change to the structure of the Ninja Turtles, which I could totally see a lot of fans being mad about that. But for me, it was just like, holy crap, that's a lot to write. Like, and if you don't write it, then it's dumb to have done it, because I'm like, well, you put them in school, I want to see it now. That's just how it is. So of course they have, you know, the 2 seasons for this show that they're going to be doing. I'm sure we'll see a lot of that. but I'm so curious how that's going to play out, especially with so many of the characters. I mean, there are other characters. We have, you know, we could easily get Slash at some point. He could just still be Slash the villain, so that could easily work. But of course, we got Leatherhead, Hero, could turn villain, but I don't think so. Baxter Stockman, not in his fly version, so they had to like split it down the middle. I did hear some stuff where people were like, you know, had some theories and stuff because it's so close to the fly, which it 100% is. So if you watch the 90s show, it is 100%. Baxter Stockman goes into a thingy, and then there's a fly that goes right in there, and then it's like, boom, that's how he turns into this. So it's like, yeah, that's the fly. It's 100% stolen from the fly, but well, it's Ninja Turtles. They like everything is kind of something else. Like it is what it is. So I don't know what they're gonna do with that, and I'm very curious if they'll stick with the Superfly thing, and that's just, you know, weird legal loophole type of stuff. But I'm curious how some of this stuff is gonna play out with them being so incredibly public, and then throwing in quite a few characters. Like, I'm not really well versed with most of the characters. Mondo Gecko I'm most familiar with. I know the names of a lot of other people, you know, it's like Ray Fillet and all that stuff. I'm familiar with them, but like it really goes Bebop Rocksteady, Mondo Gecko, and then like everybody else shows up here and there in like some of the other animated, you know, shows. So it's kind of just like, all right, let's see what happens. There's so many characters. Boom, they're all heroes now. Bebop and Rocksteady could get drafted, you know, by Shredder. Boom, turn them back into villains, no big deal. But them being outed as public changes so many things for the dynamic of just the whole universe, because it's like, all right, well, people know mutants exist, and it's like super duper public. I think that was the thing kind of with the 2012 series, where it was like there are so many people getting turned into mutants. It was kind of weird that it was such a big secret for that show for like so many seasons. But it's like, all right, it's very public, you know, right at the end of this film, and it's like, all right, well, what comes next? Because once you got the mutants, I mean, I would assume the next thing they're going to do, of course, obviously with the post-credit sequence, we got Shredder, so, you know, be a little bit closer to this, I would imagine, probably closer to the comic book version based on the way you look. There's more turtles in time, but I mean, we're gonna get Shredder. I would assume we'll get some foot soldiers. Since I got all these figures, I have to show them, because otherwise I wasted my time just taking them out of the box. But get some foot soldiers, we get some Shredder, maybe Bebop and Rocksteady as villains again, to, you know, kind of the more classic styling. Maybe they'll just be like, surprise, Token Razar just come in. I wouldn't hate that personally, especially if they did like the two characters that get, or the two teams against each other. I wouldn't hate that if it was Token Razar versus Bebop and Rocksteady at some point. I'd kind of be like, you know what, that's a dream I didn't know I had, but I'd like to see it now. So I'd be perfectly fine if they ended up pulling that off. I don't know if they will, but at the same time, mutagen is just like a thing. It's like, all right, yeah, mutants exist, so they can just be like, boom, this person got hit, they become somebody. You know, like that. It's super easy at this point. So I'm very curious what they're gonna do with it. You know, there's just so many elements of the characters, like Leatherhead being so silly and stuff like that. I mean, all the characters were, you know, basically related in this, so that's another thing. Like, they're all, you know, that family dynamic. They could play on that, especially if they do Bebop and Rocksteady kind of turning into villains. There's a lot of ways they could play around with that, and actually, admittedly, surprisingly make it very emotional to have these characters that are always villains become villains. And it's like, oh, they were kind of like, you know, I mean, they even say it in the movie, like, you know, hey, we're all like cousins. So they could totally do that, and that would actually be cool if they're able to like really hit hard on like some of the emotional beats. I don't really see that happening. That's just a personal thing. But the potential's there. They could do it if they really tried, but we just kind of have to wait and see what happens. So I'm looking forward to whatever comes next with this. I enjoyed it for sure. Just to talk about the action, my favorite sequence was the one where they actually went and kind of like hunted down all the people with like the crappy nicknames, which was definitely a great sequence for comedy purposes, just with their names. But I thought the action was phenomenal. Like, I love the action and the way they did the music. Like, all of that I felt was like, man, that moment I think was like the epitome of what this entire film was, because there's so many moments where they play music as just a part of the sequence, and I was like, that was like the perfect song, the perfect way they did the animation, the way they cut through, and it was like each turtle had their own location where they were like in charge. I thought that was a fantastic idea, like them doing the thing where like they open up all the different doors and like a different turtle's in charge each time. I was like, that I love. I thought that was fantastic. So that for sure was my favorite action sequence in the whole film. I love Master Splinter's thing. I think I liked it more, and I don't know if this was on purpose or it just happened to be the fight, but I was like, the fact that this is Jackie Chan and it's a funny fight, I'm like, maybe they did that on purpose, but it made me enjoy the fight more because I was like, this feels like a Jackie Chan fight because he's like using the chair to like boost himself up, or flip the chair and then he'll like use it as like a kickstand and like shoot it backwards to like make the chair longer. And I'm like, this feels like a Jackie Chan fight, and I think that was on purpose. So it made me love that fight even more. The whole milking thing I thought was very funny, where it was like, I didn't expect that to actually come back. I thought it was just a silly thing where it was like, you know, it was like, why do you keep saying we're gonna get milked? That like we don't have nipples. It doesn't make any sense. So that was definitely funny that they actually did bring that back, because I was like, it was funny enough just being a silly, ridiculous thing that their dad kept saying, because he was so like them even pointing out, I was like, you know, it's like kind of super prejudice against humans, and like their whole super long thing about like hating humans and stuff like that, I thought was really funny. So him constantly be like, you know, you'll go out there and get milked. I was like, I didn't expect them to remotely bring that back, because it was funny enough with it just being an over the top thing where it's like he hates humans and he's terrified of them. And we even get a flashback of him actually going out with the Jerry curl and everything. I was like, okay, that's actually really surprising. So I like the way that all of that stuff was handled. Definitely funny for sure. Mondo Gecko also had little wheels on his tail. I just wanted to mention that because I was like, that's a hilarious feature that they threw in. I was like, it kind of makes sense too. So I just thought that was a funny thing, and I was like, yeah, I could see that makes sense for him. But all in all, I enjoyed it. Definitely, you know, once again, especially the ending, you know, they are officially outed, they're going to high school and stuff, and it's no big deal. It's weird. It's a weird ending for sure. There's so many different versions of the Turtles, though. Even, you know, just in the shows, there's multiple versions. So, you know, this is just a new one, and I'm excited to see where they take it. I hope it works for sure. I think, like I said, the 2 seasons are definitely going to be the big thing, where it's like, all right, how much of high school, you know, normal life, so to speak, are they going to really give us? You know, are they going to introduce a bunch of random human characters that like we aren't really going to care about them? So are we going to see them a bunch? There's a lot of questions up in the air. Like, what do they do as far as, you know, the ninja thing? I mean, that, you know, just keep it at nighttime. They, you know, they're still hunting down the Utrom, lady Cynthia Utrom is what they call her. So they're hunting her down. Maybe she's already a part of the Krang, or maybe it's just going to be like, you know, part of their new universe thing where she becomes Krang. Maybe, you know, maybe she'll just be a mutant and look like Krang, and that'll be how they do that. Who knows? But either way, still got TCRI. They still have a lot to do with that, and, you know, Krang, and of course, you know, Shredder himself. So I'm excited to see where we go for the sequel. I'm definitely curious what they're going to do with these 2 seasons in between, because that's the thing where I'm like, all right, the movie's obviously is going to be like, all right, here comes Shredder. It's going to be a movie where it's like, whoa, what the F? This dude is insanely tough. It might make Shredder even cooler. As cool as Shredder is, it could be even more amazing now that they actually have like a whole family dynamic, because he's always whooping everybody. What if they just had like 12 people and it's like, our whole family's here, and he's like, and because he's Shredder, he could do that, and that would be admittedly very cool. Like, you know, as long as, I mean, they could even kill somebody, honestly. Like, I don't, you know, it's like Bebop, Rocksteady, Mondo Gecko, everybody else. I do like Leatherhead. I like Leatherhead a lot. Like all the different variations, I've always enjoyed Leatherhead. So maybe Leatherhead should live. But everybody else, I'm kind of like, whatever. You could kill them off if you want to. Me personally, just not that deep with it. But that's probably like the only really great thing they could do, is have Shredder come in and just wail on like a dozen different characters, and then be like, okay, he's actually kind of tough. That would be sweet. That's a really cool way to bring him in the second film. But until then, we just have to wait and see what they give us for this show. I'm sure it'll be good. I'm just very curious what they're gonna do with that. Like how, you know, I mean, especially with all the Marvel stuff going on, it's like, all right, well, if you're doing 2 seasons to bridge the gap, do you have to watch the show? How much stuff is gonna change, you know, from this movie to the second movie that's actually going to be explored in these 2 seasons? So how important is all this stuff going to be? Could you just skip right over and jump straight to the movie? Because that's always the thing where it's like, well, you can't just make a second movie that ties into 2 seasons of a show, and then all the people that didn't watch the show are like, well, I'm super lost about this. Like, you always have to find that interesting middle ground and just make like minute changes here and there as you go through. So that's the thing I'm most curious about, but I don't even know when that show's coming out, so we'll just have to wait and see. But all in all, I enjoyed it. It was definitely a fun time, definitely a crazy ending for sure. I think that's without a doubt the biggest thing that this movie does, where it's like, holy crap, they're out and about. So what does that mean going forward? So I'm excited to see what they do, because they open themselves up to a world of possibilities. Like having them out in the open, there's so much stuff they could do. Like if they brought in Bishop, would Bishop just be a part of like the actual human organization that's involved in the turtle stuff? Would they make Bishop kind of like in the 2012 series, where Bishop was actually a part of the Utrom and stuff like that? there are a lot of questions. There are a couple of other human characters that they could throw in there, some of which, like I said, could be in high school. They could throw in Irma, they could throw in Casey. Hun could come in and be part of the Purple Dragon. We didn't see anything of the Purple Dragon in this either, so that could be something that they do where he's maybe like a senior or something like that, something, whatever they want to do. They got like 3 or 4 other human characters they can really throw in excuse me, if they want to. So all in all, we just have to wait and see for now. But I enjoyed this first step into this new crazy Turtles universe. Like, it really is crazy. Like, holy crap, they're out in the open. What next? So I'm excited for that. Looking forward to whatever they do with Shredder. I'm sure he'll be super cool. Definitely looking forward to seeing kind of where we go with these 2 seasons, without a doubt. So I would love to know what you guys thought about this. Obviously, with the big changes that they made, specifically with the ending, I would love to know your thoughts on that. And do you think that's good? Do you think it's bad? In all honesty, anything can be both good and bad. It just depends on what they write next. I think they could totally do it. You don't have to stick with too much of the high school stuff, but once again, it's an easy way to insert a couple of the other human characters. Super easy. Definitely throw in Irma. They could make it where Casey is a part of their high school. Maybe he could be from a rival school or something like that, and that's how he and Raph end up fighting first. It's an easy way to do it if they want to do it that way. But I'm excited. So I want to know your thoughts on the movie. Definitely the future of this new Turtles universe. Like, where the F are they going? Because they're out and about. Shredder's coming into town. I do like the concept of that, but also if they have 2 seasons of a show, I guess they could space out the timing, or they could say when that post-credit sequence shows up whenever they want it to show up, I guess. But I'm like, he was technically there as they were watching them at the dance, so clearly he'll be there in the show. He'd have to be, otherwise that makes literally no sense. So that'll be interesting to see how they manage to write around that one. But like I said, we'd love to know your thoughts on this film and Turtles in general. What do you guys think? So please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.